What's up, you guys? I know I'm a little bit behind with my recap of the Salt Lake City finale. I'm going to be doing two videos this time, and this one is going to be on the 250 class. But before I do that, guys, remember, subscribe if you think that I'm worth listening to, or if you just want to see some more of my games, which you will see before this week is over. I've got my pressure luck finals to do. Second game is going to be filmed today. I'm going to post that on Friday. And I should also say this before I go any further. I was able to reach out to Grant Harlan over Instagram, and looks like I will be having him on as a Zoom interview on my show, kind of like how Cooksey does. But you know what? Doing it my own way. But for a lot of you who may not know, or might have heard but probably forgotten, there is one thing about Grant Harlan, and I actually am likely going to talk with him on Friday. And one thing is that he's originally from the 50th state, and that's actually what I'm going to be talking to him about mostly. And of course, I did want to wait until Supercross was over. Plus, I did have PA work to do for high school softball, but that's all behind me. So, anyway, with that being said, remember, subscribe. Let's get into this. There's my 250 banner. Haiden Deegan wins final race. Tom Vialle wins the East title. RJ did not learn his lesson. And I say that because of that move that he put on Seth Hammaker, which was so ill-advised. And I have to say, when I saw that, I was saying to myself, you can't blame RJ Hampshire for going for the pass on Seth Hammaker, because obviously the title was on the line. And I think in terms of the tiebreaker, the nod would have still gone to Seth Hammaker, because I believe he had 2 wins. RJ Hampshire had only 1 Daytona. Okay. So my take on that is just that RJ didn't learn his lesson. And you think for someone with a former championship, with a championship on his mantle, because RJ won the West Coast last year, that he wouldn't be taking shots like that. But sometimes, obviously you're never put in that position too often. And when you are, you end up making a decision you probably shouldn't have. And that's what happened to RJ Hampshire. He did something that was so ill-advised. And am I heated up by that? No, it was racing. And if that were me in that position, Hampshire almost played it perfectly, but if he had turned down a little bit tighter, he probably would have made the pass on Seth Hammaker. And I have to say, after the race, Tom Vialle won that race thanks to some luck. And I'll tell you what, that kind of move that RJ did on Seth Hammaker, that took me back to Houston 96 when Ryan Hughes went for the pass on Jeff Emig, and they both ended up going down, and Hughes was able to make it back to the podium for 3rd, and I believe Emig ended up 4th or 5th, somewhere around there. But that kind of made me think of that particular race. If you were thinking of other kind of races from back in the day like I was, yeah, that might give you some flashbacks. But hey, if you immediately thought of Houston 96, then hey, good on you. I give you a round of applause. So the difference there was that Hughes and Emig were under the same team. Hampshire, Seth Hammaker, they were not. So I could see the logic there as opposed to Haiden Deegan and Cole Davies. And like I said back then, I wasn't really too fired up, but I still felt that Cole Davies got something he did not deserve. And I will address this. I didn't put this on my banner yet because I didn't know how to word it, but I will address that in a little bit. But I thought I'd get the proverbial elephant out of the room. with the pass from RJ Hampshire on Seth Hammaker. And as a result, Tom Vialle went by both of them. They both got going quickly. Hammaker made one last charge at him, but it was just too little too late. And good on Tom Vialle, because I actually picked him to win the championship, I believe, at the start of the season. Yeah, I actually did pick him as the returning champ. But if he didn't win it, I probably would have gone with Hampshire. But Seth Hammaker should not have any reason to hang his head. I mean, yeah, the title got away from him, so I could see why he would. But at the same time, Seth Hammaker proved that he came into his own. And I'm already calling Seth Hammaker as one of the divisional champs for 2026. Okay? I've already got him picked for a championship for next year. So Seth, I think it did really, really well. I'm just sorry it ended the way that it did for you. But you really surprised a lot of people. And to see him kind of handle that the way that he did, that was totally professional. Probably just as professional as Cole Davies handling that pass on Haiden Deegan at Denver that resulted in Davies being pushed over the turn. Now on the subject, Haiden Deegan walked away with the shootout, and that's likely his last ride on the 250 in Supercross. And I think that personally, if I'm Deegan right now, I would probably try and defend that title, and then go 450s and outdoors. Okay? Just do the same thing Jet Lawrence did. You know, try to defend that title, or go for all three or go for both divisional titles. Go for an East title, and then move up. That's the way I see it. But you know what? Whatever Deegan does, that's on him. It's his life. So now, on to the other one. I have a few things to say about this. Cole Davies. Oh, man. What a total bummer. But at the same time, Cole Davies did one of the biggest no-nos on a Supercross track of all time. You do not slow down so suddenly, because that's like pulling out onto the highway out of a corner, and then you slow to a stop, and then you go 20 miles an hour on a 40 mile per hour highway. You go 20 miles per hour when the speed limit is 40. That's the way I see it. And that's what Cole Davies did. You do not slow down so suddenly on the track and either get off the track or just move to where the racing line is nuts. And that's what Cole Davies did not do. And as a result, Jordan Smith had nowhere to go. And to see that kind of crash, when I saw Davies just slow down like that, I was like, why? Why did he slow down over there? Because you definitely leave yourself in a very vulnerable position. And if I was Davies, I would have got back on the gas, or at least tried to complete that double where he crashed. And that way then Jordan Smith would likely have not run into him. And I know that feeling because, I know I know that feeling because, you hit somebody and then the rest of the day, you kind of feel pretty crappy. And, that's me whenever I try and say something that I didn't think was offensive, and yet somehow they find a way somehow that other person finds a way to make it offensive. And, that's not a good feeling at all. And I think that's kind of similar to what Jordan Smith went through. And obviously, that was a tough gig for Jordan Smith. He did not even come out for the LCQ. And at that point, it's one of those times where you just don't blame him for what happened. But as far as Cole Davies goes, report is an arm injury. But obviously that was definitely a lot worse. He was being taken off on a backboard. At least I think so anyway. I don't know. I didn't see that practice crash, but I did see it on Instagram. And like I said, when I saw him slow down like that, I was like, why? Why would you slow down in the main line? Because that's one of the biggest no-nos on the track. And quite often, whenever you slow down in the main line, things like that happen. It's disastrous. And at the same time, sometimes it doesn't happen, but this was one of those times where it did happen. And Jordan Smith was just on the wrong end of the deal. In fact, both guys are on the wrong end of the deal when you think about it. But still, Cole Davies is definitely going to learn from that. And I will say this. One thing's for sure, he ain't going to roll another section for sure. Just like how Jason Anderson won't roll a finish line jump after he got landed on by someone from Team Japan at the Nations. And I think 2017 or 16. I think it was 2017. But anyway, one thing's for sure, Cole Davies is never going to do that again. That's for sure. And like I said, you do not slow down to a crawl in a rhythm section, mistake or not. You do not slow down to that speed that Cole Davies went in a rhythm section and think you're going to be okay. Okay? That's one of the things you definitely don't want to do. Because now there was nothing Jordan Smith could do. And if at all, I feel like most of the fault would go to Cole Davies for even thinking to slow down like the way that he did. He should have just completed the section and just cruised through the corner. Okay? That's what should have been done. So anyway, that's where I'll leave it. So Haiden Deegan winning the shootout, that had to have been one of the most dominating performances that I had seen from someone in a long time. I hadn't seen gaps like that, at least in the 250s anyway, in quite a number of weeks. You know? So good on Deegan to win it, and that might have concluded his 250 career. I don't know if he's going to go 450 outdoors this year, but something tells me that Deegan is probably going to be on the 250 one more year and then go to 450 in the outdoors in 26. But if I'm Deegan right now, I'm trying to defend that 250 title or go for an East title. You know, just run that number one plate. You get a year to defend it, and then you move up. And I thought Vialle was going to be moving up this year, after this year, regardless if he won the title or not. But then there's a hidden rule there that said that Vialle had to win this championship to move up. And to be honest, I'm wondering why that rule exists now. Because to make it simple, you win a title, you get 1 year to defend it. That should be the deal, regardless. Okay. Otherwise, you're making a living in the 250 class, which I think is kind of dumb, and make it an entry-level class again. And that's what the AMA should do. Make it an entry-level class again. Go by points. Either keep the rule in, but also score over 100, 150 points in 3 seasons, period. Doesn't have to be consecutive. Okay? So congrats to Deegan. While he may have lost or earned some fans with that controversial move at Denver. He definitely cemented his authority that he's ready for the 450 class. And we'll see how that goes. Is Tom Vialle ready? I don't know. He probably is, but he is kind of moving up at about the right age. But of course, in MXGP, they go by age and not go by points, which I think the AMA should do as well. But, you know, there are a lot of older people who do like to go back to the 250s. I can think of Ryan Clark doing that in the late 2000s and early 2010s. I mean, I can remember when guys are making comebacks in the 125 class at the time, like Talon Volan, Mike Brown, a lot of other guys like that. Okay. So that's where I'll leave it. And, but still, congrats to Deegan. Congrats to Tom Vialle for 2 titles. They're moving up. I'm picking Seth Hammaker as a champion in whatever division he runs in, if this season was any indication. If Hammaker comes to his own in the outdoors, don't doubt that he's not going to be a champion. If he wins the title this summer, good on him. Okay? And he probably might have a reason, at least, to try to win it after what happened at Salt Lake City with that pass on RJ Hampshire. But you never know if Hampshire is going to get payback to him. But then again, you also don't know if Hampshire is going to be in for the outdoors this year, because supposedly he has another wrist surgery, and wrists are really tricky to come back from. Just ask Ricky Johnson. That pretty much ruined his career. And I don't know if this is going to ruin Hampshire's career as well, but we'll see what happens. Only time tells. So anyway, guys, that's all for today. And remember, subscribe. I'll have my 450 video up likely tomorrow on Friday and hopefully I might have that interview with Grant Harlan up on Friday as well. Just basically on his ties to Hawaii. And because if you want to know another guy, because if you want to know if there's anybody from Hawaii who's made it big, the only guy who's actually won a race in Supercross or motocross that was from the 50th state is John DeSoto. And I ride with John DeSoto as well, myself, when I go up and ride myself on the North Shore of Oahu. Okay? So that's just a little prelude to the interview that I'm hoping to get. That I'm 99% I'm going to get it. So anyway, guys, that's all for today. And remember, subscribe. See you all for my 450 video, likely on Friday.